James Elvery is a former New Zealand triathlete who today, along with Dylan McNeice, is behind Race Ranger, bike draft zone monitoring kit that enjoys the rare honour of being almost universally appreciated by athletes, officials and fans alike. After years of testing and perfecting, Race Ranger has become a major feature of draft illegal racing across long distance and Para Triathlon and helped Ironman make the decision at the end of January to follow T100 and implement a 20-metre draft zone in its races. So James, welcome to the podcast. How's it going?
Thanks for having me, mate. Yeah, really good, thanks. Thanks for the intro.
Well, let's start with that then. The universally liked, is that accurate?
Yeah, I hope so. Don't get a lot of negative feedback, but I think initially when we first came out with the concept and announced what we're going to try and do, there were a lot of doubters, shall we say. But other than that, once we sort of got it rolling and you could kind of see that it does what it says on the box, it's been really well received. I don't know that every athlete really, really loves it in terms of tidying up drafting. Some people might, drafting might actually benefit their race a little bit to an extent, but you don't obviously hear from those people, so and they're not going to exactly complain about it. So it's been very, very well received as far as I can tell, and we've enjoyed working with everyone really, with the athletes, getting feedback from them. Often we'll try something new, an improvement, and do our own testing to make sure it's going to be an improvement and work, but you never really know until you get 80 athletes for the 2 hours riding on the bikes and actually giving you feedback. So we usually follow up a race with direct messages with most athletes in the race and ask them, did everything go as you would expect? Any feedback? And that'd be really helpful through that. And then also working with officials and World Triathlon sport team to help us figure out, the ins and outs of how things should actually work. Everyone's been really welcoming and helpful around the world. It's been great.
And we'll go to the journey and so on, but obviously most recently Ironman adopting the 20-metre rule and what was their kind of final testing period in December in Arizona, right, of which you were a major part of that as well.
Yeah, I guess maybe we should just cover off what actually Race Ranger is, because people might not quite know. But yeah, basically most, a lot of triathlons are non-drafting, and most that amateurs will do are non-drafting, and you're not allowed to follow too closely on the bike. You've got to keep usually a 10, 12, 20 meter distance, whatever it might be for the particular event. And the athletes have to guess what that distance is. And then officials are on motorbikes patrolling the course, also guessing what the distance is. And so Race Range is basically a system of devices that go on the bikes, measure the distance very accurately, and give the athlete 3 sort of light signals on the bike in front of them as to how close they are. So you get a bit of a warning zone, and then you go into the draft zone. So that's made super clear. So instead of having to guess now, the athlete knows I can see exactly how close I am to the rider in front, and the officials on the motorbikes can see the same thing. And so as I mentioned there, some races have had different distances, and there's been sort of some change in that area in the last sort of probably 10 to 15 years. And some events have started coming out with 20-meter draft zones, obviously extending that distance to with the intention of reducing the draft effect, making the race. I don't know if people have been debating whether fair is the better word, but a more individual effort on the bike. And we were part of some testing, as I say, with Ironman. We actually did 2 testing sessions there in Arizona. One in about May, June time, and then a follow-up one in December, which was, cool to be a part of. I felt like we were part of triathlon history there a little bit, testing what the benefits actually were at different distances and allowing them to make an informed choice on how to go. But it was a good exercise, and it's cool to see them come out with it. I mean, previously it wasn't really our place to say, to advise on those kind of things. It's the event would tell us what distance they'd like set, and we just adjust the system to that, and it doesn't really affect us too much. So, but for us now, it's quite cool that across Challenge Roth, the T100 series, and Ironman events now we've got one unified distance. So for us, it means a lot less, programming, and every time we release a version of the software, we have to check it in 2 distances, and we might be able to do a bit less of that, which would be cool.
Yeah, so actually those tests in Arizona then with aerodynamic wizards and so on, that was kind of after years of perfecting and implementing, and the initial reason why you got into it in the first place, presumably as a former triathlete, the drafting was bugging you. But this was the first time that you'd actually been able to have that kind of testing of the product and the whole intention behind it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you wouldn't have to be a rocket scientist to know that, the the draft benefit is going to be less at 20 than at 12, but we were never able to quantify that until now. So, that was really cool to be part of. And what we actually did there was on our side, we provided a version of the system that measured the distance that was being held a lot more frequently, and actually recorded that on board as well. So it was quite a different program from the normal race program. And then we were able to go through the results and see, okay, here's a period of, say, 45 seconds where this particular athlete, let's say rider 3 in the line, hit the distance to rider 2 that we were trying to hold within, a certain pretty tight margin. Here's another 15 seconds where they actually drifted quite a bit. So we'll just chop that out. We won't look at the draft effect there, and sort of piece together some quite good following distances data. That's quite a bit of data to go through. There was sort of, for each rider, for each test run, there was around 12,000 lines of data. So many lines to be filtering through and figuring out where the good bits were and where the bad bits were. But no, it was fun exercise, and cool to see a result come out of it in the last couple of weeks.
All of this is fundamentally, is it based on you as a former athlete? So your last Olympic distance race was 2012, but then did you go into long distance off the back of that? And is that where it all kicked?
No, not really. So I was, bulk of my career as an athlete was in the short course stuff, so Olympic and sprint distance. And then 2012 Sydney was my last. That was sort of my last shot at making the London Games. Didn't make it there. But after that, I knew I was going to finish. I didn't really want to do long distance. I was going to give it a go, but I really liked going fast and hard and short. But I gave it a go. Got a time trial bike and started doing some races over in Europe while I was helping a couple of friends train for London. And these sort of issues were coming up where I'd be, one of the first out of the water and settle in on the bike and sort of expect to get caught up by a few of the big bikers. And you sort of get caught by one, let one go past. And then I didn't know how far to fall back, and I was falling back too far, just freaking out, worrying about getting a penalty, open up too much of a gap. Another one comes past you, and before you know it, you're 6th or 7th in the line, and heart rate's gone down to 100, and you're looking at the referee like, I'm safe now. And that's sort of my main worry. And then something happens at the front of the race and you're suddenly dropped and left behind. So a few situations like that where I was sort of like, this is not really for me. And would have taken maybe a year, I reckon, to adjust back to that for me anyway. I was sort of ready to do something else with my time as well. Gave it a go.
Yeah, so that was actually not from a attacking point of view, but a being attacked point of view then, that I hadn't sort of occurred to me that was also...
Yeah, not so much the unfairness of it. I guess I didn't really stick around long enough to get to that point. But Dylan, my business partner, definitely was complaining about that side of things. Our penalties being given without, the athlete always feels it's been unjustified because they feel like they're holding the right distance, and then the referee would make a judgment call that was different and they'd get a penalty. Or, there'd be packs that don't have referees with them, and that'd be, they'd be drafting more than the people on their own. So he was certainly frustrated. But for me, it was more just the whole dynamics of understanding that draft zone would have taken quite an adjustment to get back to.
It's unusual for a startup in any sport to have such a big impact over a fairly short space of time. But in triathlon, everything has to be done on a scale. The early days of Race Ranger, I remember, would be seeing you in hotel car parks at 2 a.m. in the back of a van, like you were either on a stakeout or...
The early days, I think those days are still going on, unfortunately. That was just last year, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, good point. But this has been like a very hands-on labour of love, right?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, it's been yeah, we put a lot into it. Yeah, I mean, we had the idea for the concept of something. We didn't know what it was back in 2012 when I was finishing up. We actually formed a company for the first time in 2014. Didn't sort of have a clear way to solve the problem, but we knew technology would do it at some point. So we just kind of kept looking and trying a few things here and there. And then from the start of 2017 was when we really found something that we thought would work, and then started working more intensively on it. And it was sort of, for me, I had a full-time job working at Specialized, the bike company. And it was sort of, it was a come home from work, have dinner with the family, put the kids to bed, fall asleep reading a book, and then wake up and pretty much work till about 1 a.m. most nights for probably a couple of years there, which was pretty tough, just to get it rolling and get some traction, to the point where probably just before we started really getting traction in races, I was able to go full time with the business. And it's been it's all consuming. There's stuff all over my house. There's gear everywhere, gear in Europe at my relatives' houses and things, and vehicles and all sorts. So it's become quite a beast, and passion project for sure. And a lot of time and effort gone into it.
So from a sort of quickly like nerdy point of view, then how many bits of kit that are kind of race ready do you have now, and at what prototype, or obviously we're beyond prototype stage now, but like version 3.0, 4.0?
Yep.
Have there been, van loads of this stuff that you've basically had to just scotch because something's kicked on like quickly before you've even had a chance to implement it? Or
Quick rundown on the iterations and things. So we had a first version that really was just designed, like the plastic shell that we put this device in was designed for me to take to some meetings and put on a boardroom table and say, this is what it'll look like, and turn some lights on. And we pretty quickly started saying, oh, could we throw it in some races? And did some races, and it works. Okay, go to the next one, At about the fifth one, it really chucked down with rain, and these things were not at all waterproof, basically. We were sort of squeezing water out of them like a sponge after this race. And that was in Spain at a little race. And that was a good wake-up call, but we kind of had to keep using them because you can't just redesign it and get some more going. So I had to send a guy over, he was in Europe, in Wales at the time, over to Spain to...
Massive bags of rice.
But I actually had to open, crack these things open, remove the batteries, ship them back to New Zealand so we could actually work on them. Couldn't ship them with the battery in them. So reworked them, had to change a few components and clean a few up, lost about 30% of them, of about, we had about 120 of that first batch. They're bloody expensive, each one's pretty expensive to push out at the moment. And that got us, we were able to sort of patch them together and then re-glue them up and try and seal them with tape. And that got us through that first year. And then pretty quickly had to come up with a second version. And that's the current one that people be now familiar with on bikes. And we've just now we made 300 of those. We've still got sort of 288 operational, which is a pretty good rate after 2 years of full on use. And now we're working on a third version. So they're under manufacture at the moment. So we've hit go on 900 sets of the new ones. It's a big gulp, big financial commitment. But if you can imagine, you've probably seen us wheeling around those suitcase size Pelican cases at events. And they take sort of 40 sets in each of those Pelicans. So 900 new sets. It's going to be a lot of Pelican cases, basically, those suitcases. So working on the logistics of scaling all that up. But the new design basically is all about trying to get to age group and taking some things that we learned about the current system that definitely won't work for when you're doing them in the thousands, and just refining that. So can go into that. But
did they, from day one, the plan was always, or the vision was to have that data beamable to wherever it might be. It wasn't ever just a traffic light system. It was always actually harvesting data at the same time, was it? So there's like memory cards SIM cards in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So right from the start, we we wanted to have a complete system that gives data to the referees basically in real time. And that's been a big project, and it's still ongoing, but we're getting there now. And that sort of led us to this officials app. So way back initially, I had this idea that the system will just decide who has penalties automatically and apply them, and athletes will just have to accept it and deal with it. And the feedback was that no, don't do that. You're wrong. So I had to accept I was wrong on that and change it. And then we started going, okay, well, how do we get this information to the referees so they can then make a decision, and the officials at races? So spend a lot of time, in penalty tents, actually going on motorbikes. Did a beginner's TO course as well, just to get familiar with the language and things from the other side of the fence. And basically came to the conclusion that how they're communicating at events at the moment is quite all over the show. And you're using often radios, WhatsApp groups, pen and paper. So if you say you're on a motorbike as a referee, you want to give an athlete a penalty, under the most common system right now, you have to record that number somehow. Some people have a little notepad. Some of them have kind of diving underwater notepad things on their forearms. Somehow record that number, drive ahead to the next, so obviously indicate it to the athlete with a card, drive ahead to the next penalty tent before the athlete gets there, jump off the motorbike, hand over a piece of paper with their number on it, and that paper goes on a table with lots of other bits of paper, and the officials running the penalty tent then has some stopwatches that they put with each bit of paper. The athlete arrives, they start a stopwatch, find the bit of paper, and hopefully the penalty gets served correctly, but it can be a bit chaotic. And we just found, and then you're sort of using a WhatsApp group to organize, who has the last athlete got out of the swim, certain things like that. But then they'll also be posting about, here's what I had for dinner with my friends and where we're meeting tonight, that sort of thing, all in one big sort of message group. And so we sort of saw a need for an app that can replace all of that as it is, that will then eventually receive the data from the devices on the bikes as well that we're building. So we actually started with that project with World Triathlon way back in, would have been 2019 or 2018, one of the two, just before COVID, in Lausanne at the age group world champs there. We made a demo initial version and trialed it with the officials on the motorbikes and had some really good feedback there. Then we got really busy building the hardware, and that kind of took over for quite a long time. But now we've sort of building the app again, and we've started testing that as well at events. So that's almost at the point where we can add the layer of the drafting data on top. It's a fully functional communication tool. Officials can talk to their phone or talk to a tablet. It'll go straight through the process of, if you say athlete 55 drops some rubbish, it'll say, would you like to apply a penalty for littering, yellow card, select here, sort of thing. So, it's working pretty nicely. And then the officials as well, figuring out how they're going to interface with this app. It's one thing standing in a penalty tent or in transition holding a phone, but riding on a motorbike, how do they see this app? So, we've played around with sort of cut off backpacks that are a harness on the driver of the motorbike for the referee to sort of have right in front of them. And we're sort of still hopeful that might get used, but some of the motorbike drivers were a bit concerned about the insurance problems there. But moving to having it on their thigh as a different option, which seems to be working fairly well. But still working on trialing that. We're working with worked with World Triathlon through probably 6 top level events, World Series and T100 level events last year. Got some good feedback there. Ended up with Wollongong. I think we had 75 odd officials using it. Now we're working with Triathlon New Zealand through the summer here to just get a perspective of small events, because we want this to be usable for all size events. So someone has to go in there and create, hey, this is going to be Challenge Wanaka, and we're going to have 6 officials. These are their names. These are their roles, and just that setup stuff. And then getting each of those officials logged in. So we're just trying to make sure that we have that process smoothed out for small federations and events as well. But that's coming along nicely, and hopefully soon, we're having a meeting tomorrow about it to get the project really rolling, to start sharing that data about drafting that's going to the internet, and be able to use that for the referees.
Was that the new app then, the officials app? There was also a way of following the packs around the course on there, right?
So here, how that's working is all our rear units are also going to be just trackers. So they've got an internet connection and they're able to share information once per second. And to prove that out for the first time, we just had, okay, I'll just send my athlete ID, my race number, and where I am at a certain point in time. So we've got that working fairly well. And also for the officials as well, any official who's logged in, it tracks their location as well. So there's sort of, you can track where the officials are and also where all the athletes are on the course. And that was fairly simple. Yeah, now it's just a case of adding more to those little packets of data that are going up from the riders. Hey, I'm following this athlete. There's another 3 in front of them that I can see. Right now, I'm outside the draft zone, nothing to do. But then anytime it goes in the draft zone, it's sharing that as well. And that gets sort of, computed in the cloud, and the system can then figure out, okay, in relation to where this official is on the course, these are some athletes that they might want to go and have a look at that are kind of close to them.
I suppose more from a broadcast standpoint as well, though, having the possibility of having that little map in the corner of the TV broadcast, being able to see where those packs are in relation to the course, the lap they're on, closing, that extra visualization of being able to get the context of the race is sort of a key part of what the broadcast has needed for quite a long time.
Yeah, I think was it Belinda in Wollongong actually was using it and could see, the camera wasn't showing where Hayden Wild, but the tracker could show that his bike hadn't left transition. It was the last to start moving, and then you could sort of watch him trying to catch up and catching some people, and it was pretty cool to see that in use. But yeah, we want to add a lot more to that for the broadcast as well, particularly for the non-drafting sort of T100 style and Ironman events where normally you've got that leaderboard on the left of the screen during the bike, and it sort of won't always update that quickly because it's based off the timing. So you'll see, let's say Hayden again might overtake Rico Bogan, and it'll still show Rico as leading for a couple of minutes until they finally update it. And if you don't have that immediate, kind of changing it, you kind of lose all faith in the whole leaderboard. So obviously we know the order of the riders pretty intimately, and we know when an overtake happens pretty much to the split second. So that can all be shared, and then that can also immediately change those orders in the leaderboard. And the other thing I want to add is we've got these colored lights, and when you're watching on the picture, you can see, okay, there's Hayden following Rico, and he's following a blue light, so we know he's riding legally. But you can't see what's not on the screen. But we could put those colors next to each athlete's name to show what it meant to the rider behind them or in front of them. So you can see perhaps who's moving through the field, and they're going from orange into red, and then they're making a pass and moving through. So that's definitely on the top of the list for this year.
So yeah, even that moment of attack, and has it happened or not, you can kind of you can sense it come in, and then even if you can't see it on the screen, you can appreciate it, how quickly it's happened, or get a...
Exactly, yeah. Highlight that for the fans. You've got one view, or maybe 2 if we're lucky, but you want to know what's going on for, say, Sam Long coming through the field, and you want to know accurately what's going on. So, and that can help the broadcast as well. They can flick to Sam if they can see him making those overtakes.
Commentator's dream, yeah. As far as the auto penalties, are you happy that you were convinced otherwise, or do you think there could have still been a bit of appetite or application for that?
I mean, one day perhaps, but definitely there's going to be, it's going to take some time for people to fully trust it. And I think there's always, the challenge is always going to be where a human judgment is like, you need it to make the decision. You can't really, I don't know, one day we'll get to that point probably with technology, but assessing a situation on the road, figuring out, hey, is this person really trying to draft, or is it just something to do with, let's say there's some sheep are running along the side of the road and they're causing the athletes to just worry about not crashing rather than not drafting, and in those sort of situations where human referee is still going to be really valuable. And that's why with the system where we're trying to recommend athletes to them, it's still the referee's decision on who they give a penalty to. So it's just giving them more information about what's happening. They can go there, see what's going on for themselves, and then apply a penalty if they want to.
Yeah. And I guess
maybe we'll get there one day.
The other part of that conversation is retrospective penalties, right? Once all this data was released, it was Challenge Roth that were the first to do that. Obviously, it was announced in advance, but it didn't feel like people were necessarily expecting the data to be made public. Then, boom, there it is. That sets the precedent. But then that does bring about that other conversation. But does that just actually help it self-police in a way as well?
Yeah, I think it's working quite nicely. Just discouraging people from going into the red too much. No one wants to be at the top of that list, do they? I mean, it comes out, and now it's become a bit normalized, so it's not a huge interest like it was that first couple of races. Yeah. But you still don't want to show up at the top of the list, and you probably have scratching your head a bit if you do. And but the unfortunate thing is there will always be someone at the top, no matter how little they draft. So we've just got to accept that, and it's part of racing. And this is what happened out there. You were in a group with lots of people, and that caused you to earn a lot of time versus someone who might be on their own and might look really clean, but they're actually just riding solo the whole way. So it's just, I guess, it's just interesting for the viewers and the fans and the athletes themselves to get a bit more information about what went on in the race.
Yeah. And I suppose one excellent testing ground, and also where it has been massively appreciated, was in the Para Triathlon realm. So the Paris test event, it was used, right? 2023.
Yeah. So I believe as well in 2023 we started doing some para events with World Tri, and the Paris test event was a big one. That was a pretty crazy moment to go from nothing to sort of be standing. It felt like the Olympics at the test event. All the blue carpet and everything was pretty much how it was going to be a year later. In 9 months to go from struggling to get into a race to being used on a stage like that. So very cool. And then right through 2024 went on and were used right through the Paris series, the World Series, and then the games in September, which was a great experience, and awesome to be part of.
Yeah, I guess it's one thing to be there in transition and talking to the teams at a Para Series event, and then a whole nother to be there race morning of the Paralympic Games, everybody somewhat on edge, and you're just there kind of having to just check these little machines, attach them on.
We're sort of getting to the point now where the athletes put it on themselves, right, usually. That's how we operate at Ironman events. We hand them out at the briefing or at the registration desk. At that point in 24, I was still putting them on at every race. And actually we had, because I think we had at the games, we had something like 125 athletes, I think it was, over all the distances and categories. And we also had a couple other races on that weekend. So I had people at other races around the world, and I didn't have 125 with me. I think I had to recycle about 30 or 40 from one of the first waves and sort of get the data off them, reprogram them for different athlete numbers, and then refit them. So it was a bit of a scramble under the bridge there in the dark, but we pulled it off, and I think everyone was pretty happy with how everything worked.
And then getting those first T100 series obviously began 2024, and you were there from the get-go, right? So that was a massive moment as a company for you, for the whole tech as a proving ground. And
I think it's my birthday today, 2nd of February, and it was actually
Happy
2nd of February 2 years ago. 2nd of February 2024. We actually signed the Ironman agreement for the season, so that was huge. That was sort of 17 races in 2024, along with I think it was 8 at that year for the T100, mm-hmm. And it was like, okay, go time. I threw in my day job and went full time, and it's been pretty crazy since then. But we did 35 races in 2024, and then we didn't try and grow much last year. 2025 we kept it about the same, and then now we're gonna add more for 2026.
Yeah. And this whole conversation about the 20-meter draft zone has, I guess, somewhat been kicked off or facilitated, or will be certainly implemented as a result of Race Ranger, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to claim 100% of it, but I guess yeah, we've been a part of a lot of that conversation for the last couple of years now, and become an accepted part of racing. And if you can measure that distance really clearly, the next step is just to try and measure what the different draft effects are and draw some conclusions from that. So hasn't been possible before. So it's actually really hard to measure that distance. So in our initial really early testing, we were trying to figure out, okay, how accurate is this thing when you're actually moving? And that's really, really hard to prove or to test. We basically had a few scenarios in mind. We rented out a race car track and put little bits of tape along the road, and then filmed it from above with a drone, and tried to actually pointed the lights upward at the drone and tried to measure the moment when that light changed and what was the distance at that point. And that had a whole lot of problems with it. We tried again, putting 200 meters of sort of meter high sticks in the ground and setting them up so they'd be perfectly parallel and sticking up. So at sort of 25 centimeter intervals all the way along for 200 meters, and then drove a car next to two riders who were going past them and tried to get a good distance measurement. But yeah, all sorts of lengths to actually measure that. So before, I guess, the technology came along, it was really hard to actually know what that distance was to be able to measure it. When you're going along, the distance feels a lot closer than what you might expect. If you're standing still looking at someone in front of you, you go, okay, that's how far away they are. And then you try and repeat that on the road, and you're actually a lot further away. Because if you got that effect, if you think, if you're driving on the Autobahn or a really fast motorway, you'll think you're quite close to the car in front because you're going fast and you're a bit nervous, but you're going fast is the main thing. But if you see a photo from the side, there's actually a huge gap between you. And it's the same effect when you're riding along. So, I guess we just made it possible to measure that and do some proper testing.
And then a logical next step, or certainly that the conversation has already been well discussed about age group application. There is a perfect example of, certainly in like the World Triathlon age group races, the self-policing is just part of the game, right? But going from a T100 field of 20 athletes to an Ironman world champs of 60 is something, but then exponentially more difficult. Like an age group race is going to be lighting up like a Christmas tree, no?
Yeah, exactly. So, we've actually done a pro race of 140 athletes. That's the biggest one we've done. That was a big race in Spain. And then we've done a race of 280. We used everything we had on actually Challenge Wanaka last year. So we've got a bit of experience with, the issues we're going to face when we really scale it up to another 10 times that number. And I can talk through some of the things we've worked on there. But yeah, I guess that's sort of the image everyone jumps to. Oh, this will never work for age group. The races are way too crowded, and there'll just be this sea of flashing red lights. What's this guy smoking? Basically, when I start talking about it. But we've spent a lot of time thinking about this and how it would work, and working on different possibilities. And basically, what we've come on is this thing can't just be a drafting detection system. It has to add a whole lot more to the race. And if you look at an age group field, not necessarily say a world championship or an age group world championship, world tri sort of event, but maybe an average 70.3 or Ironman or challenge event, sort of a large mass participation triathlon. A lot of the athletes there are competitive, and they want to race the same way the pros do. They've got all the gear. This is their sport, their passion. It's part of their lifestyle. They do it year after year, and they are trying to qualify for the World Championships. And maybe they've gone to an exterior World Champs, or they've been in the sport for a while, but it's what they do. And then there's a large portion of people who are just doing it say for the first time, or they're quite new to the sport, and maybe they have just set themselves a goal of completing an event, and then they don't intend to do another one afterwards. They might catch the bug, but they're not really serious about it. Or maybe there's someone who does maybe one a year. They're not really, really a triathlete, but they do one a year just to kind of stay fit. And for these kind of people, they might not even know what drafting is a lot of the time. And they get quite a surprise when a ref pulls up beside them and perhaps gives them a penalty. But a lot of the time, a referee, if they come across these type of athletes riding in a group, just sort of cruising along, they'll often just say, "Hey guys, just keep your distance and stay safe." And so we've kind of got these two spectrums of athlete, and that makes up this field. We've got our pro athletes who are, considered different and have prize money and they're very serious. But then we've got some athletes that are pretty much professional. A lot of them, they spend a lot of time in it, spend a lot of money. They're not making money, but the pros aren't making a hell of a lot either. But that's their sport, and they take it very seriously, and they want to race very much like the pros do. They want to be policed fairly. They want to know that if they're being assessed for a penalty, it's done in a fair way. And they want to know that athletes behind them aren't just caught up in some big bunch of people and are getting a free ride. And then these other athletes, we don't need to have lights going for them. We can basically configure the system so that there are lights going for one group, but not the other. And then that sort of asks the question of, okay, well, why do these, general participation type athletes even have to have a device on? This is basically because you're never going to be able to split these two groups. We're not going to have a Saturday and a Sunday race. There's always going to be some sort of mixing on various courses. I sort of would suggest that you put that sort of competitive group together at the front, and then you'd have a bit of a gap to the rolling start of the mass participation. But for that general participant group, the device becomes basically a tracker. So your spectator, instead of wondering where you are based off the timing, it becomes a live dot, like we were talking about for the commentators, for every athlete, with an update once a second, and you can see as a spectator of them either at the event or at home, they can track exactly where you are and don't have to sort of wonder and guess. And for those athletes, their connection with their supporters is a really big part of their event experience. If you think of a typical age group of triathlete who's really serious, half the time their family are like, not even following them. They're like, "Oh, hey, I'm off to do Ironman Hamburg next week." They're like, "Oh yeah, whatever, Dad. Cool. Let us know how you go." But if it's your, one of your first ones, your whole, everyone at your work is into it. Your friends, your family are glued to that tracker, and that's how we get a lot of new people into the sport, is following someone through that journey. And so, we want to make that basically a lot more engaging and enjoyable for those people to follow along. This is how we kind of see it working. We'd have just one device, the rear, for the most athletes, and then two for the serious ones, so that if one of the general participants went in front of the serious athlete, lights would then come on for them, but not the other way around. So we don't get that, big flashing light scenario of everyone lighting up. So that's kind of what we're working to. As I say, we're building 900 new sets now that will give us stock of around 1,100 that we'll be able to deploy on larger and larger races. Everything we're building in that is with scalability in mind. So basically the second version that we have at the moment, it was a lot more waterproof, but it's still not, it's not some IP 69 or 68 standard. So when we get to thousands of these things, we're going to need to clean them a lot more efficiently than we currently do. At the moment, you've seen me probably in a hotel room with these things everywhere, wiping them down with a cloth, getting all the gels and sweat off them and other things one by one with a flannel from the hotel. But that won't work for 1,000 of these things. So we sort of have this picture of a commercial dishwasher type machine that we'll have at the event, where you can put 50 at a time in there, push a button, put the lid down, a minute later they come out steaming and clean. But to handle that, they've got to be really, really waterproof. So we're moving to a design with screws and a seal and proper ratings and things. Other sort of pinch points are, we currently put those race number stickers on the sides of the devices. So athletes 1 to whatever it is. making them and putting them on is a real time suck. It takes, it's kind of a half a day job doing a number of these little steps before a race, and that'll just, multiply when we get thousands. So we're basically eliminating those and moving to a QR code system so that we'll have QR codes that identify the devices, and then athletes are generally often given a wristband with a QR code on it at a lot of the Ironman and 70.3 type events as an age grouper. So we'll basically scan the athlete's wristband, scan the device, and they'll be paired together for the event. Just steps like that we've seen after 2-3 years of operating that this is not going to work. We have to come up with a solution here. Mm-hmm. A few things like that.
So fundamentally, the kit is there, it's tested, it's proven. These kind of add-ons are about efficiency and scaling it. And to all intents and purposes now, then it is like you've reached that financial viability moment where you can kind of hone it and it's come to fruition.
I wouldn't say it's as rosy as that. It's still your funding's still an issue, and we've just gone out for another funding round from our investors. We actually got around 55 investors, and most are just really passionate triathletes. I'd say 40 of the 55 are actually triathletes. So just gone back out to them and over Christmas mopped up what we needed to pay for the production and to get us through for a few more years, which is awesome. But there's eventually we'll have to make some more, and that'll be a cost. So this is how we have to basically get to this age group step where doing the pro stuff will kind of sustains itself, and a little bit of the engineering work in the background. But we do need to keep ramping that up to make it into a viable long-term thing.
Yeah. And then this and the broader officiating app and tech, and we'll be seeing a lot more of that at World Triathlon races this year. Will we? I guess is the other long-term goal is to have this impact on the broadcast and be able to feed this data in real time for viewers at home as well.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a lot of things we're working on, as we've sort of talked about quite a few of them here. We've got a whole list of priorities that we'd love to get to. There's also, drafting off motorbikes would be something we really want to address as well. It's something that gets talked about a lot, and we've actually been in talks with UCI about that as well. They'd love to have a tool that could help that situation in road cycling as well. Getting data to the referees is a pretty big one for me. Getting live tracking data for 3,000 athletes at once, and just getting over 1,000 devices in a single race at one time is going to be huge. So we're a little team. We've got how many of this? There's probably 4 full-timers, and then we've got a number of part-timers and people who work at events for us. So small team. So sometimes things take longer than we'd hope, but we're making good progress, little step by step.
Yeah, I guess the motor drafting is it kind of pops up every once in a while, doesn't it? When I guess it's particularly visible in a certain race, and then it seems like the situation improves and then it kind of disappears. But that would, on paper at least, look like a very sort of straightforward application of Race Ranger, right?
Yeah, straightforward. My engineers just put both hands in his face, and he's just nothing straightforward, unfortunately. Like, to give you an example, since just before Christmas, we've been trying to solve a little bug that popped up late last year around combining the drafting program with the live tracking program. And it looks like a little thing, and it doesn't happen that often, but you really don't want it to happen. So it's like a big process and a big hassle to find the problem, actually figure out what's going on is a big one. Propose a theory to fix it, implement the theory, do some testing, see if it actually fixed it. 9 times out of 10 it doesn't. Try something else. So everything is it's sort of like you build something and then you take 2 steps forward, 1 step back every few months, unfortunately. But generally moving forward. It's great.
Well, glad it's you, not me, doing that, but also we're obviously very glad that it exists. Well done on making this like a revolutionary part of triathlon. And
thank you. And I guess thanks to everyone listening who's supported us along the way. World Triathlon's been right there from the start. One of the first meetings I had when I was trying to talk to people about the concept was at the Commonwealth Games in 2018. 8 years ago now. So with Chris and Thanos there. So that was one of the first meetings we had, and they've been super supportive right from the start. It's one of those things that I guess the stereotype of the stuffy federation might sort of have turned their nose up at, but no, they were right behind it from the start, wanted to know exactly what we were doing and help us where they could. So thanks for that. And yeah, every other sort of event organization that's helped us out since then, both Ironman, T100, PTO, Challenge. Yeah, it's been great. And all the athletes and officials who've helped us out. Yeah, on to the next.
Right on. James, thanks very much for taking the time, especially on your birthday. Congratulations. Go and have a blow the froth off a couple.
Just a quiet Monday night, unfortunately. But we had a little cake over
Nice. All right. Thanks, mate.
there. Cheers.